what about like just like the old timey like the pirates, just the regular kind of
Yeah.
And so in this game I told a lot of stories about the things you do, and a couple of people came up and said I really liked hearing the stories, it really made me feel good. But then other people were just like the Skeletor stuff that I did.
Yeah.
They literally go on apps and stuff just to hear it
that's
once a day,
awesome.
just to help them or
That's
give them a
awesome.
smile. And I was like, that's all I care about.
That's
if you
fantastic.
got entertainment from it, that's fine.
Yeah. For me, it's Spyro. It's aside from Rocco, because it was everybody's first game, the PS1 in 1998. And so I just thought it was Spyro, Laszlo, Rocco, and Spyro are all right there ad nominal. But thanks to the animators and the directors, they can have each different qualities. But Spyro is a comfort for people who were younger, and it was the first game they played. They didn't have friends, or now they're adults and they love going back. So Spyro the Dragon, just a little guy that just goes, "Watch out for nasty Nork." To me, it's like a nothing voice, but to somebody who's played it for so many hours, they've come up and said, "Oh, thank you for being Spyro."
Yeah.
That would be one of those
Yeah.
people, because it was Crash Bandicoot and Spyro, because those were like sister
All
games.
right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I was in the hospital still playing
Yeah.
games. That's where I first played
Wow.
games, and so my mom had to give me something to do.
Yeah.
Back in the
I get it.
mid '80s, so I got an NES, and through most of my time growing up in the hospital, I just played games to kind of escape it.
Yeah.
But then I just became in love with the whole
Yeah.
art.
That's
everything.
awesome. Well, just as a side note, nerd moment, playing video games is not doing nothing.
Yeah.
And it's not a waste of time. If
Yeah.
you want to talk about it later, people can become incredibly social with each other on video
Yeah.
games, and it has nothing to do with having bodies in the same space.
It works for my youngest daughter, Austin. She's
Yes.
got a PC computer. She's got her iPad going. She's playing with Sean and her friends, and they're laughing and they're engaged.
Yes.
And like, I did this to you, and now I need this from you. And
Yes.
she loves it. And we're like, yeah, that's cool. We limit the time because you want
Yeah.
them to actually go outside. But
Right.
it does.
It's
She's fully
extremely
engaged
social.
and creative and
Right.
interactive and cooperative. It's I agree.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same way with my daughter. We give her like the screen time and stuff like that. But I'm a pretty physically active person
Yeah,
in
yeah.
the past, and I don't want them to like
Yeah, I
not
get
be
it.
on the screens
I
all
get
day.
it.
But she's like one of those. She turned 8 yesterday,
Right.
and she's very social and active. But she'll see a video and she'll start putting up phones and cameras and like presenting and being like, hey everybody, this is both. So
That's
I
fantastic.
thought that was adorable.
No,
Yeah,
it
it
is.
is.
I remember seeing my kids play Super Mario Kart with people from France.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, damn, that's cool.
Because you see the flags, the flags all over the world on those. I saw those. I was like, what?
What a cool way to make people world citizens.
Yeah.
I mean, and maybe if they started throwing a little bit of educational content in the background, I'm just saying part of the reason that hate gets to be hate is because people don't see difference.
Yes.
Right? You don't get to experience and engage difference because the world you're in is keeping you from it. Okay, leave that aside. I'm going to ask you about social media again, and you two might have different frames of reference given your age differences. If you're going to do a professional gig in the entertainment world, there are ups and there are downs. There are times when you may ask yourself, why the hell am I doing this, right?
Yeah.
Bills to pay, blah, 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 blah. At the same time, there are these incredible ups where you get that applause. You mentioned being up on stage and stand-up yesterday where it's just powerful and stuff. So has social media, I'm going to ask you both to answer this question, has social media made it easier to keep the career going, or is it just, or not, it's not or, might it also be that it's the same thing, just amplified?
Oh, Isaac, you can go first if you'd like.
I guess I wasn't doing social media in terms of like when I started voice acting, it was like right before, but I started doing characters before social media was my really big advent. But then I noticed when I started doing it, it really got your name out there, and you were really kind of like your own brand. I think that's a thing that's really good about it. It can work with you, but it is social media, so there's millions and millions of things to. You're in a sea of people,
Yes, and I'm assuming that as there were likes and that sort of thing coming in, there may have also been some negative comments and unlikes and stuff like that?
I'm not one of those people that go through and read all that stuff now. And most of their social media is good at filtering a lot of stuff out. So, like, I mean, I can't keep up. Like, I posted one of the Skeletor videos, and it got like 15 million plays, and I can't go through that.
Okay, so you're so popular that you don't have time.
I'm just saying. Like, I was like, okay, I'm going to try to read these because if somebody took the time to comment on something I did, I'd like to read it, but mostly it's positive.
The reason so as you were doing this and you were doing the work and you were managing a social media relationship with fans and stuff, did anybody give you any coaching on how to deal with all of that?
No.
Okay, no, I'm just curious because it's a big deal.
Yeah.
Right.
You pretty much have to plant it and go. Check it occasionally if something personal shows up, but you don't want to engage in something that may lead you down to a negative pathway. But I'm so impressed with talent like Isaak, young talent on TikTok or whatever that do impressions or new voices. I think they're far better than we were when we started out back in the 90s. So I am impressed to see so much young talent on social media. Tara Strong is really big, Ray Delisle. That actually helps her get more voices in primetime stuff. That helps their con appearances because they draw followers. And I had to learn, like, maybe I need to make more content. Maybe I need to be creative with my content. And it has helped. And it is a new way to circumvent the old agent route. You must have a reel and send it in. You know, I used to mail cassette tapes to people.
Yes.
Like sit at the TV and just do a cover letter and zip it up and staple it and put a stamp on it. And now you can do that through social media, you know, and build a following and then have an agent go, who is this kid or who is that?
Exactly.
It is kind of fun doing it because I'm all independent, so like I'm not with an agency or anything like that. I never signed up with one because at the time somebody was interested. I was like, I couldn't help out some of this independent game developers that were asking me before, and I felt bad because I was like, you guys are working like with amazing talent that I could never do making a game. But I don't want your game to suffer through the lack of voice acting because they were like, we're just going to do it ourselves, but we're not very good. And you know, a lot of people don't realize how far voice acting can take just a simple game and make it go. So I was like, okay, I won't do that right now because I still don't know a lot about the whole business thing. I just did it myself.
Gotcha.
And so I helped them out. And it was really fun because I got to help out a 14-year-old that did a VR game for school, and it eventually got released on platforms. And he was like, you know, I can't afford you, but I'd really like, you know, like a Patrick Warburton style voice. And I was like, okay. It was like a tutorial, and it was just simple. It was like, it wasn't even that long. It was like a paragraph.
And this all happened through social media?
Yeah, when they saw my videos, they were like, hey, I saw that video, and you have really cool voices. So cool. I worked with like a lot of other people who are on social media. Like there's a guy named Commander Carl, and he does like inanimate object reloads, if you've ever seen those. Like he like reloads a vacuum, and he like edits and stuff like that. And now he's working for a video game studio. But I did it with him, and he was like, hey, can you do some bark orders? Just make them up.
Yeah.
And I was just like, okay. So like when he reloaded the vacuum, I would just be like, you know, time to clean up, you know, kind of thing. And then he was like, this is hilarious. And he had like 3 or 4 million people on TikTok, and he showed it to everybody. And so people would find me from there. They're like, hey, will you do this? And I was like, cool. So
good for you.
It really is. You just kind of have to, it's a huge learning curve.
Yeah.
Because I didn't grow up with social media.
Well,
kind of halfway through.
You know, I think that for me, one of the take-homes is something I try to teach my students who are in the field and trying to get a name in the field is do things that you love to do. They might look small to the world, but make sure you love to do them. Make sure they have they reflect what you think is your best. And then it grows from there.
Yeah.
Right? It's not like someone just picks you out on the street someday and says, looking at you, I think you'd be a great voice actor.
Yeah.
Come in my studio. They see something you do. Or, as you mentioned, I almost said the old days, man. You had to send in a reel. Yeah. And then someone else got to filter it. Yeah.
And for Tom Kenny and I and Maurice LaMarche, stand-up was a good training ground, doing characters on stage and being vocally dexterous. So that lent itself to transitioning into, and it's a good resource to be able to go up on stage and trust it and bomb and fail, but then start to trust yourself. And so that was a great precursor to entering the voiceover.
That's actually funny that you were a stand-up, but I started with like bands. I started going on stage on
Billy
bands,
West too,
and I was a metal singer in the new era, new metal,
screamo,
like Limp Bizkit,
okay,
stuff like that. And so I was playing locally, like in really bad places.
It's all good. We got to do
sometimes
our gigs.
in like pool halls, and I was just like screaming into a microphone, and all that stuff. And it's just like one of those things where you're trying to find where you really want to be in life. Of
course.
And I liked it. I just didn't like the whole music world culture at the time. Like all the people I was playing music with were doing drugs and drinking. I just wasn't really about that.
Right.
And I couldn't do it because of my health. So I was like, I don't really want to be in this kind of culture.
Yeah.
So I just figured out because when I was doing bands, I'd be like, at first, I had no idea what I was doing. I was like, how can I match Jonathan Davis's voice or Fred Durst from Limp Bizkit or David Draymond from like Korn, even going back to like the Doors. Like, how can I match Jim Morrison's voice when I'm singing?
Yeah.
So like, and I would do that, and then it kind of like I had not realized I was also watching cartoons and doing that, but it wasn't like kicking in that I was doing that until years later that I was like trying to match everybody's voice.
No, I love what you're saying. A little anecdote. I wasn't a band, and we were playing "Smells Like Teen Spirit."
Yeah.
And the lead singer was having a little trouble with the vocals, and I said, "Dude, just channel Cobain." And so he channeled Cobain, and it came out. That's the thing you're talking about. Comes from the inside, right? Just imagine yourself being this while you do it. Keep that imagination going. It feeds back in, and it keeps going. And that's just a life lesson right there. You know, people say things like, "What's fake it till you make it." I would just try until it gets there. But it's all work, and that's another thing I try to make clear.
Seth MacFarlane's Sinatra voice is pretty spot on. He can sing, and it sounds like Frank Sinatra. He's channeling Frank, man.
Exactly.
When I heard him and Frank Sinatra Jr. singing together, I was like, he sounds more like Frank Sinatra.
Yeah, and then Frank Jr.
Frank Jr.
Tonight.
He's an amazing talent, Seth MacFarlane, because he made Family Guy, and he did all these voices, and we've heard where he come up with all these characters. He knew like 1,000 awesome. Peter Griffins. Yeah. So it's like the same thing. Like I've known people, like I was telling you earlier. Yeah. I knew my uncle who was like a southern redneck Bubba guy, so he was like, I just want to talk with no governor in my house. This is my house. Go get the tractor out of the yard or something. So I was like, I want to do that because I think that's hilarious.
No, it is hilarious.
I would do the same thing, like when you were saying watching shows. I was really a big fan of Star Trek, so I'd watch anything Patrick Stewart did.
Patrick Stewart.
Ian McKellen was a big one.
Yes.
But when it came to like speech, it was almost different categories. When it came to speech, it was like Phil Hartman and then Patrick Warburton and stuff like that. I like those kind of things. Yeah. And The Simpsons, like Dan Castellaneta is like a genius.
Incredible. That's awesome. Do you have any questions from the audience?
Oh, that's a good one. Live action, I always joked I want to be a Nickelodeon dad, like, and they're like, oh, I made a volcano and it's going to explode. Come on over here. It's going to work at any time. It's going to work at any time. There must be something. Where are you going? That kind of guy. Animation, obviously, some more of a Family Guy primetime thing would be great to be a part of. I do like villains. So maybe another Latino villain that doesn't not like a Bane that I've done before, but somebody softer, like the next time we meet, you won't be so lucky. Somebody like that would be great. But no specific show per se. A Seth MacFarlane type gig, a Simpsons character would have been great. I don't know if it's possible anymore.
There you go.
Something like that. But I got to play Come Fly With Me, Kachinya in Inside Out.
Well, this
also Mr. Weed and
Mr. Weed. Peter, you're fired, and I got killed.
This whole Nickelodeon dad. Yeah. When I was raising my kids, I used to say, "Sorry, I'm not a Disney dad. Yeah. You're not getting away with that."
Exactly.
Because those shows were built to put the Ravens in charge and ride
the kids had the power, right? Exactly. Not. So,
how about you, Isaac?
I mean, I think I've always wanted to maybe do voices where something I've helped create. It doesn't matter what the character is. I do like creating things.
Yeah.
because I grew up with so much. So there's all this like I haven't seen this so far in my head. So I'd like to go out and create that. And I was talking to Carlos earlier about a live action show that we're actually currently working on with a number of people, and I get to actually be a character that I helped create.
That's cool.
So anything like that, but reoccurring role on a show would be nice because then you're like guaranteed like more work.
Yeah. Hey, it matters. It matters. You know. Other questions.
So as far as just starting out, have either of you ever started out in a closet and identity?
Yeah, there's a friend, Sunil, who works on the Casa Grandes, who records out of his closet. And yeah, I just did an audition today in my hotel room next to a chair with a little tiny mic, and it came out great. So yeah, anywhere you could get a decent, even in a car, parked car with the glass, you can do an audition anywhere with these mics these days.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
The tech you have in your hand right now these days is unbelievable.
I would say the same thing. I started out doing that in an apartment with a closet, and I had like a bunch of wool stuff from when I'm from Canada, so I lived in Florida, so I had no use for it, so I just used it to pad it, and then I put it up against there, and I used a microphone that was connected to a mini DV tape camera and plugged it into my computer, and the guy was like, hey, we need some lines for something, and I was like, okay, this is the best I can do, but it ended up sounding pretty good.